Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? I know this is a late show, but had a ballot access committee meeting tonight. Had some other stuff to do, but I'm trying to keep to my recording schedule, so no matter what time it is, it's that time. Plus, I'm trying to figure out with my eCam software, I don't even want to get into the technicalities of it, but when I was doing a Restream, I could schedule it from a different computer and not have to come down here, and I haven't figured out yet if I can do that. It's a long story, but anyway, we shall see, I suppose. Maybe I'll try that tomorrow and see if it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But we're going to get right into it because it is a bit late. Tomorrow there should be a show. Wednesday there's an LNC meeting, so there definitely will not be a show tomorrow, but I have a few phone calls I'm due to make tomorrow, so not too sure. So let's get on with it. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not already, and also go over to Rumble because I have a feeling that's where I'm going to end up. Also, though, Elon, you're breaking my heart, Elon, with your CEO pick. I have a feeling the days of Twitter being great are coming to a close. But while it's still good, because apparently Top Lobster got banned for, well, they didn't say. I hate the way these social media companies can ban you without telling you exactly what you did wrong. But it looks like he got banned for criticizing Elon's new CEO pick. Where Elon, I guess, said he was going to open up spaces where you could ask her questions or anything like that. And Top Lobster apparently said, I'd rather you just launch her into space, which is funny. It's just that's a funny joke. I'm sorry. That's a funny joke considering SpaceX and all that. But apparently he got, I don't know if it was for that, but that's what he's claiming. Anyway, we shall see, I suppose. Hope springs eternal. I guess I'm always willing to give someone a chance. And lastly, I appreciate everyone's support on Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. Okay, we're going to get on now with the LP history. So, the next thing that was on the agenda, and this seems to me this is going to be very 1970s. I haven't read, of course, it's all very 1970s because we're dealing with 1975. Now, I haven't read the article yet, but just looking at the title where it says deregulated transport ahead, I think this is during the time, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who lived through it, but I think this is during the time of airplane deregulation, which I don't remember quite obviously. I'm not going to tell you my age, but I was young then. But I'm vaguely aware that the airplane industry used to be a lot more regulated than it is now. You wouldn't think so with TSA and everything like that, but I mean the industry itself, not necessarily airports, but boy, those of you who are of a certain vintage like me, you may remember like going to the airports used to be fun. Like you could wait at the gate for someone to come off the plane, or if your husband, your family, whatever was flying somewhere, you could like wait with them until takeoff. It used to be fun. I think there's even an old Seinfeld episode. If I remember correctly, they were waiting by the gate, weren't they? When, yeah, they were. Do you remember that Seinfeld episode where Kramer was placing bets with this Texan guy about whether planes would be on time or not? That was a freaking great. I just love Seinfeld. Was just a great show to begin with. But if I remember correctly, they were all like at the gate, so that was pre-TSA. I'll have to watch the episode again and see if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe they were waiting more. No, I don't think so, because Kramer ended up running out on the runway. Yeah, that was a good one. All right, so let's see. This could not be about airlines at all, and that was just a big rabbit trail. So let's see. Okay, so deregulated transport ahead, ? The strongest drive in recent years to substantially deregulate surface and air transportation. So that's right, at least air transportation is in here, is now underway in Washington. Last fall's pre-summit and summit conferences on inflation didn't result in much agreement on or improvement in the government's macroeconomic policies, but did yield a near unanimous opposition to regulation of microeconomic market processes in general and transportation in particular. Subsequently, the Ford administration has publicly committed itself to an effort to decrease the regulation of surface and air transportation. The extent to which the railroad, airline, and trucking industries will be actually deregulated remains to be seen. Thus far, only legislation to reform rail regulation has been introduced. And it's funny, like you're hearing a lot about that, like they're blaming lack of regulations on that recent explosion. Thus far, only, so bills promised for this year on trucking and airline are being fought over within the administration and should be sent to Congress within the next few months. If I remember correctly, Sheldon Richman wrote very extensively on deregulating the airline industry. We might need to look that up. See if I'm remembering correctly, but I'm pretty sure I am remembering. You want to know what? I'm very curious now. So I like to test my memory to make sure I'm not getting too senile. So let's look up Sheldon Richmond Airline. I thought he wrote something on that. I'm not finding it quickly. Huh. Maybe I'm just like thinking of something. I think it was in Reason Magazine, actually. Or was it Roderick Long? It might have been Roderick Long who wrote about it. Anyway, can't find it quickly. That was just a little rabbit trail. If you know of it, if you know what I'm thinking of, there's like a real detailed article, if I'm remembering correctly, on that. But anyway, within the administration, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department, the Council of Economic Advisors, and the Council on Wage and Price Stability. Oh my God, those sound so horrifying. Are generally strong supporters of deregulation. I guess they're not so horrifying, but those names. We're from the government. We're here to help. Their opposition typically comes in varying degrees from the Interstate Commerce Commission and the Civil Aeronautics Board. Partly as a result of Ford's public commitment and partly because of the force of their arguments, deregulators have thus far been able to set the tone of the policy debate. Outside of the administration, support for deregulation has primarily come from economists, ideological libertarians, and increasingly consumer groups. So the railroad, trucking, and airline industries are generally strongly opposed, to any movement aimed at ending the reputation which has fostered their cartels. That's what people do not realize. Once a company gets big enough, it wants to be regulated because it stops competition. And God, people just don't understand us. I mean, libertarians do, but the average person does not. I certainly didn't understand that before I was a libertarian. Most of the Congress is apparently waiting to see where the cookies are. That's great. The railroad legislation, which was introduced in Congress at the end of May, does not go as far as the deregulators would like. In light of the traditional big brother attitude of Congress toward railroads, and in light of the other alternatives proposed, however, the rail bill is probably about as good as can be expected at the present time. Next, 19th century villainy. The prices, entry and exit criteria, and general operating rules of railroads have been regulated by the Interstate Commerce Commission since 1887. The result is a national rail system which is now generally in bad financial condition. Hello, Amtrak. Sorry, Pietro Geraci. The rail bill is probably about as good as can be expected at the present time. The prices, entry, and exit criteria in general... Oh, no, we already did that. The proposed legislation would gradually increase railroad pricing flexibility and would make it easier for firms to abandon unprofitable routes. You know, when you start talking about railroad regulation, I mean, all you can really think about is Atlas Shrugged. Remember the... what was it that Toohey or whatever his name was in the book proposed? The anti-dog-eat-dog legislation. So apparently seems like there was something like this where the railroads weren't allowed to terminate unproductive lines. So it said it would make it easier for firms to abandon unprofitable routes which the government currently forces them to serve. The best solution to the problem of Northeast bankruptcy, and I think Northeast is a company in here, is a policy which permits entrepreneurs to buy up bankrupt lines. The proposed bill, however, would provide $2 billion in federally guaranteed loans for capital improvements to struggling lines. This provision is a method of appeasing Congress, which can't understand how railroads could operate without their support. But who will operate the railroads? The only politically likely alternative is a loan program. Apparently, is outright nationalization of at least the Northeast lines. Is this Amtrak? Like, did Amtrak exist before the 70s? Are we like reading about the creation of Amtrak here? Under a quasi-government monopolistic corporation, and this says it was called Conrail, proposed by the U.S. Railway Association in its preliminary system plan released in February. The USRA plan was prepared under the authority of a 1973 congressional act designed to find a means of saving the Northeast railroads. Ned Kelly, this is some real Atlas Shrugged shit here, man. He didn't say shit. I said shit because Ned doesn't cuss, unlike me. But yeah, man, this is some real Atlas Shrugged shit here. But did Amtrak exist before the 70s? Somebody let me know. Like, because I'm wondering, are we like reading about I thought Amtrak existed a lot longer, though, than that. Deregulators within the administration, as well as many academic economics, have worked strenuously to discredit USRA's nationalization plans. Whether Congress will accept the administration's alternatively, Ned cussed. Ned, seeing you cuss is like when I saw Tom Woods at Porkfest. I said, seeing Tom Woods at Porkfest was like seeing your pastor at a brothel. I just couldn't compute because, like, Porkfest is pretty hedonistic. And Tom Woods is like as straight arrow as it comes. But I did get him to cuss on his show, though, which was pretty funny. I mean, it wasn't the F-bomb or anything, but it was pretty funny that I got Tom Woods to cuss. We talked about, okay, so route structures, fares, and entry-exit requirements in domestic air transportation are set by an industry cartel acting through the Civil Aeronautics Board. Prices are fixed above market-determined levels. Routes are awarded. Wow, you had to be awarded in a route? To be honest with you, I don't know how the airline... Amtrak 1971, Sam Bowler says so. It was prior to this. I thought so. To be honest with you, I don't know how airline routes are like determined today. So maybe like my shock and awe here that they're awarded is like really naive. Maybe it's done the same way now. I don't know. I'm not like a plane buff. But anyway, routes are awarded in a manner which minimizes competition, and entry into the industry has been completely closed by the refusal of the CAB, which is the Civil Aeronautics Board, to award certificates, operating rights to new airlines. Internationally, prices are fixed by the International Air Transport Association and sanctioned by CAB and foreign government equivalents. Entry-exit standards, route structures, and to an increasing extent, flight frequencies are established through intergovernmental negotiations. Oh my God, this is some Orwellian crap. Air transportation legislation being drawn up in the administration is primarily aimed at the domestic industry and seeks to renovate the CAB's power to disapprove fares which arise in the free market and increase the ability of firms to enter and leave a market at will. Can you imagine saying, nope, you can't leave? That just reminds me of the whole like Robert's Rules thing where you have to accept a resignation. Now, I've learned a lot more about that since then. Like, if you don't formally do it, but you act as if it's been accepted after a certain amount of time, it's functionally an acceptance. But what happens if you refuse to accept a resignation? Like in a libertarian organization, say you got a state party, and the chair resigns or tenders his resignation, his or her, and the rest of the board says, nah, dog, we're not accepting it. What? Is this the Hotel California? Like, what? Anyway. I guess this is in my nightly sangria. It's how I relax. Don't Karen me. Okay. So anyway, where were we? We were talking about how accepting a resignation. Pricing flexibility will be introduced by either restricting the CAB's power to disapprove fares above some variable cost floor, or by restricting the CAB's disapproval powers within gradually widening zones. Entry flexibility would be promoted by prohibiting the current CAB practice of considering the effects of entry on existing firms and awarding of routes and certificates by prohibiting, my God, this is just such like corporate government gobbledygook. Government CAB practice of considering the effects of entry on existing firms in its awarding of routes and certificates by prohibiting, oh my God, the CAB from indefinitely postponing action on a request for a certificate and by making certificate. This makes sense to somebody. I'm lost. Okay, I'm going past that paragraph because I can't even take reading it. Apparently, there was just all kinds of red tape. Let's just summarize it. How about that? Not surprisingly, the airline industry is strongly opposed to a free enterprise approach to air transportation, arguing that if firms could charge any price the market would bear and fly anywhere and anytime it became profitable to do so, the industry would be destroyed. Well, the argument that some cities, enclaves of voters, which are currently served by scheduled airlines, might not be served under deregulation is particularly persuasive to congressmen. Okay. Fortunately, however, important congressional support of airline deregulation has come from Senator Edward Kennedy, who has held hearings on airline regulations before his subcommittee on administrative practice and procedure. Okay, so now we did railroads, we did airlines, now we're going to talk about trucking, which I know nothing about. Trucking regulation is administered by the Interstate Commerce Commission, which fixes prices. God, that sounds so mafia. Bars entry and exit and controls output in typical cartel fashion. Although economists and libertarians have supported deregulation of trucking for many years, the trucking industry has proven to be extremely adept at thwarting reform. You notice the common goal here is the way these companies are working with government. We haven't seen anything like that. Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, we haven't seen YouTube. We haven't seen anything like that today. This is just unheard of. But it's a private corporation, bro. Okay. Ford's public criticism of trucking regulation have increased the possibilities for the deregulators to successfully take on the ICC and the truckers. Moreover, consumer groups have become more vocal, particularly since the airing in February of an ABC program on truck regulation, in which the ICC and its chairman come away looking like evil, albeit dumb, cartel enforcers, and hammering out trucking legislation to be sent to Congress. The major debates apparently center around the easing of entry and abandonment requirements in ICC price-fixing powers. You want to know what this reminds me of is the insurance industry. And I know a lot. I'm going to piss off some Floridians here. And this may, because I'm originally from there, for those of you who didn't know, and this may have changed, but there used to be regulations because Florida is such a high-risk state. You know, you have these for high-risk state for, sorry, I should have filled in the gap, for hurricanes and certain natural disasters, so that if you live in certain areas in Florida, like the coastline, your property insurance rates are like ridiculously high, to the fact now that private insurance, you can't get private insurance. You end up in what's called citizens property insurance, which is basically a state-run insurance program. It's crazy. It's like FEMA, but for windstorm in Florida. So But before that, it used to be, so if you say you were, I don't want to name a real insurance company, so, let's just make one up, like Insurance R Us, and you wanted to insure cars in Florida, it used to be that if you were going to insure a certain percentage of the car market, you had to insure a certain percentage of that housing insurance, because nobody wanted to insure in Florida because the risk was so high. It was so friggin' regulated. It's crazy. So what these companies ended up doing is doing like splinter groups, like, for instance, and I don't know how it all worked, but I know this is what started it. Like, there's Allstate Insurance Company in Florida, which, you could get your car insurance through. But then Allstate started like a sister company or a spinoff company, whatever, the way these corporations do this, called Allstate Floridian. And Allstate Floridian was where you got homeowners insurance through, so that if Allstate Floridian went bankrupt, it didn't affect Allstate Insurance. Like, my God, the regulation was crazy. If there's anyone in chat like that's familiar with the Florida insurance industry, you'll know, like, it's nuts there. Anyway, let's continue. I don't even know how I got in that. Regulation. So we're talking about truckers. So apparently the common theme here with the railroad, the airline, and the truckers is that the government was mandating that you must serve certain areas. Meanwhile, without letting the market. So you wonder, why we have these catastrophic losses. No offense to my friends in Louisiana, but like, it's not, if it was just market forces and you couldn't get insurance for property that, I don't know, is like 100 feet, below sea level. I know I'm exaggerating, but these super dangerous areas, the people wouldn't be there. We are subsidizing that. Everybody is, through programs like FEMA. Can you tell I used to work in insurance for a long time? Okay, let's continuing. Most probably, the legislation finally proposed will at least restrict the ICC's control over entry by prohibiting it from finding that entry would adversely affect incumbents. In addition, the legislation may allow completely free entry to new routes and may gradually phase out entry controls altogether. At least these provisions are being sought by the deregulators. Route abandonment would become a mere technicality in most circumstances under the proposal. The ICC's price-fixing powers would be reduced by specifying zones of reasonableness. Oh my God, like that term right there, just zones of reasonableness. That just reminds me of like free speech areas. Like, yeah, this is your free speech area. It's like, excuse me, the whole country's supposed to be a free speech. Oh, God. Okay. Zones of reasonableness within which market-determined prices cannot be disapproved. With these zones widened over time until the effective price-fixing powers are eliminated. Doesn't this just anger you so much? Like, I'm not a big Constitution person. You guys, like, know that. Like, I'm hardcore anarchist. But there is no way. Like, this crap was just pulled out of politicians' assholes. Like, I'm not a fan of the magic, like, of a magical document, one document to rule them all. But this shit was not intended. Like, even as intended, I would chafe at some things. But I'll have to tell you, if we got back at least to what it was intended, I would find a new hobby. And the chutzpah of people who think they have the right to rule over other people, or to go into a voting booth and vote that your vote rules over other people, and it's somehow legitimate because you got more people to agree to oppress a smaller group of people. I'm getting very libertarian lathered up right now. Okay, let's continue. Let me have some wine. Wine helps everything. As in the case of the airlines, the trucking industry is opposed to the deregulation efforts on the publicly stated grounds that deregulation would destroy the truck transportation industry, and the privately recognized grounds that deregulation would destroy the cartel. Any legislation sent to Congress will inevitably be changed from its original version. Most likely, such changes will be away, of course they will be, from an ideal free market solution. There's some hope, however, that positive movement will be taken toward deregulation as its political popularity continues to increase. Oh. Now, that was kind of a very boring article, but it did get me like all worked up. It doesn't take much to get. I think, the hobby of libertarians is just getting all worked up and fighting each other. Those two things is like just our pastimes. It's our oppositional defiance disorder. Okay, as usual, even though it's super late, so there's not very many people watching live, I'm going to stick around for a few minutes, as I usually do, finish sipping my wine, maybe do some stream of consciousness ranting since I am all lathered up. I started the show really tired and kind of not very energized, and now I want to go do paintball. That's how I get out my frustrations. So yeah, let me drink some wine. I want to tell you a story now that we're talking about paintball. I don't know how we got there, but we're there. And in comments, if you have any questions, this is your chance. So back during the unfortunate events of 2021, as I like to refer to them, the LPCO had a fundraiser at a paintball arena. And oh my God, that was so fun. And of course, I was on the winning team. I had a lot of pent-up aggression. I posted pictures before of me with the paintball thing. But let me tell you, I was with that paintball gun, and I was envisioning other people. Let's just put it that way. I was envisioning other people, and I was nailing their asses. So that was a lot of fun. Libertarians are okay with consensual violence. I am dying to go paintball again. That was fun. Wayne was on the other team. I nailed him a few times, but he got me right in the ass. Right in the ass. That hurt. Otherwise, most of them didn't hurt that much. It hurt if you got it on your hand, but you wear a helmet and whatever. A lot of fun. If you haven't been paintballing, it's a lot of fun. Particularly with some other libertarians, and particularly if you happen to be angry at the time. All right, you all, that will be then it for this evening. Hopefully I will see you tomorrow. And if we do tomorrow, what we're going to cover is National LP items and events. So we'll see what the National LP was doing in 1975. And that's a real short article. So we will continue on the theme of the National LP and go on to new members join National LP XCOM, because that's what the LNC used to be called. All right. I hope you all have an awesome night. Remember, God, now it's only a week and a half and I'll be in Oregon. Timothy Perkins asked me to pin him. If you're considering becoming a life member, and I might be in your area at some time, be glad to pin you. If you're not a national member now, you can increase your national delegate allocations. You only have till October 31st. No better time than the present to go to lp.org/join. If you're already a member, /join donate. We'd super appreciate it. At the Ballot Access Committee meeting tonight, we talked about getting ballot access in Arkansas. You can help towards that. Maybe I'll just do a whole show on various things that you can earmark funds to, of some things you might believe in. All right, you all, I hope you have an awesome night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because they want